Barber Shop Podcast. That's where you are. Boxo Studio in the hot happening town, Hamilton, Ontario. I'm here with Ryan Cannon. Ryan, have a good steak dinner at the Cumberland Grill tonight.
Yeah, I got a nice meat coma going on.
You got a meat coma going on, washed down with a little bit of Carling beer, available for sponsorship. We like your prices. And I like what I got going in the studio tonight. I have what no offense to anyone else who's been on the show, but I think this is going to be the best show we've ever had because I've got, a big hero of mine, in the way he has worked the music business and retained, a personality. That what hell of a nice guy, and it's just a joy to be with him. And I'm so happy to have him in the studio, Mr. Dave DeRoches, otherwise known as Dave Rave. Dave, how you doing, brother?
Wow, thank you. Man, I'll tell you, considering the people you've had on this show, that's mighty high praise. Thank you. And an honor to even be mentioned, considering the people you've had on this show. So thank you for the wonderful what you'd said.
Well, I put it this way. I've lived in this house for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or the studio for 20 years. And for, when you start out and maybe you've played for 4 or 5 years, you get, I had people who would come over, right? And then if eventually your Harrison Kennedy would come over, someone would come over. And eventually the higher you were on the totem pole, if there was such a thing, the nicer person you tended to be. And you always treat people with respect. And I think that's a big part of surviving as long as you have in the music business.
Well, whatever works for you. I don't think that you can be anything but what you are. Like, I remember one time I was doing a show somewhere, a college show, and I got really mad at somebody in these guys in the audience. They threw some stuff at us, and I made the mistake of running out to go, and they stood up, and they were 2 football players. I think it was the Waterloo, like the Guelph. And but I remember that after that, the owner of the bar said, "Don't do that. You don't need to do that." And I was like, it was like a revelation. Just be yourself. You're okay. You're okay as you are. You don't have to be anything more. And it was a great lesson in rock and roll. 'Cause, I mean, you can be Dion, and you can also be Del Shannon or Buddy Holly, Elvis. They're all Little Richard, Jerry Lee. All of those guys were all their own personalities. You never saw Jerry Lee trying to be Elvis, and I think that's important. My personality over the years, I happen to be fortunate to be around some of the most charismatic people ever. And if I ever tried to be like those guys, like whether it was Frankie Venom or Tim Gibbons or just the numerous people, you would lose. They're very, very beautiful
people in their own right.
Yeah. So I learned to be myself and just to sort of, say that's enough because you can never compete with an original.
Yeah. But when you mention who you are, even though that's you, as a young person, some of the people you mentioned, Buddy Holly and Little Richard, these people obviously formed the genetics of who you are, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me about when you start feeling the music and those little incidents that set you on a course.
Fortunate person because being my mom here in Hamilton, Ontario, where I was born. My family on my mother's side was a very long family. Like we had a lot of kids. I had a lot of aunts and uncles, and it was my mom was the youngest of a family that stretched a whole century. So I got to hear at family parties pretty well every kind of music from the beginning from Al Jolson to Dean Martin to Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, big band, country music. I'm just very fortunate that, over the years we get to hear everything. So I had a whole set of cousins that loved Elvis and, wore the pink outfits. And then just around the corner from that came the music, and, Roy Orbison, around the corner from that came this music, which was the 60s. Slowly, like, you had, Ed Sullivan show, and every week there'd be something going on. So we were very fortunate. We got to see all of it as it went along, like right from the beginning, from Elvis right to punk rock in succession as it went along. Firsthand, Bob Dylan, all those things that were happening right to, when you were hearing, seeing little Johnny Jewel from television in Cream magazine, get that single, the television single. What's that record about? And then and then reading as we were going to Mohawk College in not Hit Parade, but Rock Scene magazine, seeing pictures of the Ramones, not even hearing the music, but seeing pictures of the Ramones, Talking Heads, Blondie, all these bands. Fortunate that, as we can see, because as I've worked with younger musicians now who are in their 20 to 30 something, they're seeing it in backwards.
Yeah.
We saw it forwards. But it's good though, because both sides can meet in the middle.
Yeah.
We can each give something to each other.
Well, when you talk about when you came up through Westdale,
yes.
that was and it still remains to be quite a hotbed of musical talent and a love of music. And on Facebook, I think it was Bob Bryden put on a series of pictures, and I saw a very young Dave Rave and a very young Chris Houston and a very young, a bunch of guys, Mickey DeSadist, and people you've known, and they're at the record store, which is the social gathering point, and it's a cultural thing. And you could tell there was edge, there was fashion, and that was like the music was more than what you listened to; it was a lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting story. I was telling this the other day to Dakota, Ralph Nicole's daughter, at her shop on downtown in Westdale, right and I was saying that when I was in grade 9 at Westdale High School in English class, it was Miss Millward's class, and Ralph sat right across from me, and Ralph's a very fun-loving guy and a very open guy, so we started talking about music right away. And it was really funny because I remember this really well. Like at the end of my first year in grade 9, like before Christmas, this quiet fellow in row 1, and I was like row 4, and Ralph was row 3. That's how it all worked. This quiet guy comes over and says, "I play drums. Would you like to jam?" And I remember going, "Well," and he goes, "I got a bass player. Don't worry." I went, "Okay." And he's, Frank. My name's Frank. Now it's hard to believe Frank is a quiet guy, right?
Yeah.
But inside he was.
Yeah, he was a good Scottish lad.
Yes,
Francis
exactly.
Kerr.
Yeah. So we were all in the same class, and I remember it was just the beginning of 70, and I think January 72, that when we got back to school after the Christmas break, I took my friend Mike Condren and Bill Truscott, because I didn't really know Frank that well, and we went to Hillview and brought an amp to share on a very cold day. And then I remember Mr. Kerr saying to me, "This is really good, come back tonight and play again." And it's sort of where it all began. And I was telling her that, and she said, "I never knew that." And I don't think even Ralph knows that, where it all began. But it's nice. I forgot that's where it begins. And but it was interesting because at our school we had Mike Gorlecki, right, who was Mickey DeSadis. Gordy was in chemistry class, just starting to really get his guitar going. Steve Mann was in my class, chemistry class, just getting his mojo to want to play. So it was nice. We were all there itching at the same time. And I was thinking about this on the way here. All our lives, is this planned? Do we plan what we do, or does things occur?
Yeah,
was
Teenage Head meant to be in the chemistry class, or did it just so happens that gave birth to Teenage Head because there was those like-minded, and someone was willing to ask. So when Frankie Venom basically came up as a very young lad and you're inexperienced, asked if you want to play in a band, how was your guitar playing at that point? You played for a while.
Well, I'd been playing since I was like basically grade 7 and 8. I was in. I remember I was playing, and I would be, I remember that kind of thing, eh? Yeah. And there was a guy in my class named Joe Figliola who was a wonderful bar musician who passed away a few years when I went to Christ the King grade school. And I remember Joe used to get out at school early on Fridays, and I remember asking him, "Joe, why are you getting out of school early?" And he said, "Because I play at the Y for the grade 7 and 8. What do you call it? Junior high?
Back to senior elementary at the time.
Yeah, so I remember getting him teaching me, some stuff to play, so I could go do a couple of numbers with them. at that
Nice.
at the Y, and so he got me a book and showed me like some stuff, and I remember learning a few bass lines, and so we were just beginning to play. So maybe I had about 3 years under my belt, but I could play well enough to do songs, But we always just played whatever chords we could figure out. We never worried if they were the right ones.
Right.
And I still people tell that. Don't worry about the right ones. Just play the right ones for that at that moment. You could do.
Yeah, the way it feels, and it's always been
Yeah.
a real feel to it. And the Hamilton produces a pretty distinctive sound.
Absolutely, we've always been like that, eh?
Yeah, and we got a lot of material. I mean, there's so many stories to talk about tonight. I want to fast forward a little bit
Sure.
into the fellas, and one of which we've had on the show, Tim Gibbons, but
Absolutely.
with Rick Andrew and Claude DeRoches, and you guys. Had a little band called the Shakers.
Yeah.
Now that kind of tell me about how that blew up for you and how that led up.
What happened is, in a nutshell, Rick, like after me and Frank playing together for a certain amount of time, Rick was brought to the band, like classic. And Rick, I remember one day taught me how to do a harmony. We were during our break, which was what a great thing to learn. He said, I'll hit this note, you hit that note. There'll be two different notes at the same time. I couldn't understand what that meant. So, but he taught me that, and then one day, we were going to go to Westdale High School football game, and because I see the cheerleaders, whatever. Reason why you go to a football game when you're in high school, and he said, "Why don't we write a song?" And I just remember going, "Write a song?" Well, I've always done noodling and putting a few things down what I thought might have been a song, but I never thought I'm writing a song. So he showed me from my noodlings on my book that I would do it. We'll take these words and I'll put a tune. I'll go, da, 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 and I went, wow. He goes, now when we learn a song, the cheerleaders will come and see us play.
Yeah. And
So
true.
don't worry about going to see a cheerleader today. Let's, But so it was a great moment, and so we sort of started a bond from that, and eventually we started doing a duo because of our harmonies, and we added my cousin Coyote on drums because he was always around, a drummer too. Frank was drumming, and so was Claude, and there was Nick. So we had a lot of drummers in Westdale, and then we slowly put together a little unit. We put together this unit that was a lot of fun, and the reason why we actually did the record, the first record, was just strictly just to see if we can get better bar gigs. But what happened is we struck gold because the song was well liked by Mr. Nevin Grant, the CKOC man, and he started playing it on the radio, and serendipity happened. We had Mr. Gord Lewis happening playing guitar on out the door, and the way Hamilton works is that we right away, Gord said, well, you're now playing, since I'd already been playing some extra rhythm guitar and background vocals on Teenage Head records already anyhow, and he was on our record. He goes, well, now we're going to be doing shows together. And so it's just a Hamilton way. We got to do shows with Teenage Head, and it was always great. They were just, what a place and a time to be.
Yeah,
they were the
time of your life because you were at the age.
Yeah,
and
they were the
just
greatest
really
band right now at that point in the world to me, besides maybe the Ramones and the Pistols. That's about it.
Yeah.
They were the greatest band. They were rocking. They were on fire. Frank was on fire. Gordy was playing. Everybody. It was just, and we got to be part of that and grow with those guys and play with them. And it was just wonderful, So the record was doing well, and we needed a full-time guitar player, so we bugged that Gibbons, and we said I said
this kid's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting. Again, another
drummer, because he was also drumming at the time.
I don't know if he remembers how we ever got together. We were needing a guitar player because now we're on the radio, and Gordy's in a band. And we were using another guy named Bill Dillon as a second guitar player in the studio, but he wasn't going to be a band member. He was a session musician. So I'm at Night 2 Coffee House with Bill Powell. It was around just before supper time. Tim comes waltzing in from Toronto, and he goes, Dave, how you doing? I got this new song I just wrote after hearing your song out the door on the radio. And I went, oh, really? Play it. So he puts it on the Night 2 system, and it's Car Full of Girls, a demo he had done of it. And I went, oh, my God, you are the guy that we need, because we've been. You got to remember, Kevin. Remember this. When we were rehearsing to try to get guitar players, most of the guitar players at that point didn't understand what new wave was.
Yeah.
It was more of a rock point of view at that point. People were, trying to be like Jimmy Page, like Alex Lifeson, like, or Proggy, one or the other. So just to go, was like, what?
Yeah.
We didn't take lessons just to go, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Tim took lessons and wanted to go.
Yeah.
So what a lucky guys we were. So we just said, we remember me and Rick the next day drove to Toronto. We got him. He was in bed sleeping. And we said, we need you as a guitar player. And, Tim, okay. When do we start rehearsing? Tonight. Okay, just let me get, my clothes on. And he, it was hilarious. He had the Shakers single sitting, and that was all he had on front of the thing. But it was great. So he drove in, and we had a band,
Serendipity.
And he history was made because he was meant to be a shaker, and then meant to be do what he did at Trouble Boy and that.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't expecting you and Rick Andrew to knock his door that morning. Well, it led to this, and obviously it led to a lot of other things. Going to play Out the Door. One of the songs that double charted for you.
Absolutely.
2 songs on the top 10 at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to like it, having a hometown band blowing up that big, that good. Well, you're going to hear it here on Barbershop Podcast. This is Out the Door by the Shakers. Got to go right out that door. So that's rock and roll. And at that time, what year was that?
I was 19. We recorded, I think it was 79.
79.
I think we recorded in 79 because Picture My Face was 77, 78. Out the Door was 79. The first one, we cut Picture My Face in 77, the single version.
Now,
so that was 78. Or it was a year after we did it, yeah.
And it's funny, that would be considered like right in on New Wave or something that was edgy. It was...
This part here comes from, we were really enjoying that one. The Trouble Boys came in, they started a combination of that and Monday to Friday, Tuesday to Blues Day, Wednesday to Wednesday, off Dave Edmunds' album.
Right.
When we heard that record, I think it was Gord and Brian Baird, who we know as Slash Booze. We were at Paul Kovac, who was at that time the manager of Teenage Head, and we used to go to Paul's house, and I remember him putting on Get It, and I hadn't heard it yet, and they both were going, you're gonna love this, and that immediately we were like flipping out, and I heard the way they were driving it, and I went, yeah, that's our entry into this world. You know what? Because I like Dave Edmunds for like. You went away and left me long time ago, but now you're knocking at my door. I hear you knocking. We used to even imitate the echo on the voice,
right?
You know, try to make it sound like. But anyhow, so that was right in there, you know, with new wave coming on.
And the material seems like it was coming. You were getting contributions from everywhere,
it
right?
was just unbelievable. Again, go back, do you write it or is it writing you? I think it's writing you, because you're just picking up what's around you all the time. Every record you hear, you take a couple licks from it. I remember going to see the first time the lads Teenage Head did Some Kind of Fun live. And I remember just going back, you know. I remember I came home that night. I wrote "Baby It's True" because it was just that. But it was, you know, from hearing, you know, that's Some Kind of Fun.
Yeah.
And just loving that, you know. I'm gonna twist, gonna stomp with you. Gonna rob. And it was like, wow, that's a revelation.
Yeah.
You know, every time you heard something, it was a revelation.
Yeah. And there's only 8 notes, so you can't be afraid to, if a riff kind of grabs you, to take it and work with it.
Oh,
it's like,
the one music is good when everybody's using everybody's licks.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the 60s, the 50s, or the 70s, or whatever it is. It's usually when the glory period of any music is usually when everybody's interconnected. Because you know, whether it's Bob Dylan, you know, he was hearing the Stones, or hearing, you know, like hearing the Animals do House of the Rising Sun, I'm going, I'm going to play rock and roll now too.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. I'm not going to play a folky no more, you know? Yeah. And it's like when we were, you know, when Teenage Head started playing, I'm sure Tom Wilson was sitting, you know, going, I want to do that too, even though he was still being a folky at that point. It was in the back of his mind. It inspires you, you know?
It does, you know.
That's what the exciting part is.
Yeah. So, 1979, 1980, Shakers getting radio play, and now it's like you're still young guys.
Yeah.
The band going forward, how receptive was the business at that point? Did you learn a lot quickly?
Yeah, in Canada at that point, it wasn't like England and America where people were they were gonna jump on stuff. You know, even like, I mean, when you think about it, the Diodes were signed, and Teenage Head were signed through IGM, and the first record Epic, and the second record Attic Records. You know, so it was a few acts were getting signed. There was not much indie, so I just took the bull by the horns and said, okay, I'm not going to wait. I was really inspired by the Stiff record, so I said, let's call it Warped. We just made our own label called it Warped, and we'll make it. We'll put it out because we know we don't want to wait, because it's going to take forever, and this era could be over by the time we wait.
Right.
And we know at that point, the Canadian record companies were still signing basically acts that were only getting signed in America in 1974.
Right.
Like they were like 5 years behind the time, and you know, they were trying to push Red Rider. Come on, you know, like Tom Cochrane. That's not, and they were pretending that he was new wave, but it really wasn't, you know. So we were up. We knew we were up against that, but we were naive because we were getting the British magazines. It was so connected, right? We were reading, we were watching, you know, like you know, every week a new band coming out. Joe Jackson, like Tim. I remember him, you know, being inspired by Look Sharp. You know, then there was Elvis Costello. There was, you know, the Stiff tour. All that whole Stiff was so amazing. Then you just every day, you know, then the American side stuff was good. So with both sides was so good. And then around here we had good things happening too, you know, great songs being done. And so it was inspiring from every area. And I think after we did Out the Door, then what do you call it? Douglas Suggs had Too Bad. They got their song indeed. So it was like a chain. And I think they eventually
built onto something.
Yeah, so we were lucky, and you know, we ended up getting distribution through Trend, and we just did it ourselves. I guess pre-Bare Naked Ladies, right?
Yeah.
We just did it and said, you know, we knew that nobody was going to understand it instinctively. I think we already knew. So we just figured just keep going, you know.
What a wonderful time in life, though, to realize that, to take that chance and serving you for the rest of your life in this business, to go, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, like the possibility are endless, because it's a tough, it could be a tough grind, you know.
My buddy and lead guitar player from the Florida Razors, Jason Avery, one time said to me, he goes, being in the music industry, it's like having Cassius Clay and Mike Tyson hitting you at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's so hard because you got to be creative, you got to be business-wise, you got to think of new things all the time.
Competitive.
It is competitive because not only do you know, so you really think about it. It is. So yeah, you have to really have a joy de vivre and love it, you know. And even then, you can be downhearted. Like, I mean, you know, there's periods of times when you're just like, no matter who you are, you're just going to get down.
And one of those times was, you know, you mentioned your involvement with the guys in Teenage Head, and you played with them, you know, in and out and did work with them. But, you know, it was really a down time that where you had to step in at one point.
Know, the thing is, every time when you're putting a new model into the game, Kevin, like they were building a new model, like they were, which is still really hasn't been acknowledged. There's been no, you know, Canadian Hall of Fame, Juno Award, whatever that held for building a new model. But you don't have Pursuit of Happiness. You don't have everything, Blue Rodeo, none of that stuff without them. Because really, they went on the road around Canada. And I know that from our experiences, like from Mo, I think if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be playing. Gord Downey, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. If it wasn't, you know, this is no news. But for the people out there,
there are a lot of people who don't know
that story and don't know what we did, you know, and stories get corrupted and they get. But yeah, you know, so when the Shakers were following that new model and trying to build on that model, and we were all sort of competitive together. We were all building it together and hoping, and you know, I am always touched when, like example, like when we were in Austin, and me and Ralph Alfonso from Bongo Beat, and around the corner we run into Greg and Jim from Blue Rodeo, and you know, they're really happy to see you, you know, like, wow, they still respect what you did then when they were still trying to build their career. So it just means something to you, you know, like, and they're going, you better come out tonight. We want to see you there. Or when you hear that Tragically Hip play Picture My Face when they come to Hamilton, the show. It's a nice little nod for the model that Teenage Head built, you know, or help. But unfortunately, when you do build a model, you have to really work really extra hard, and it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. That's an understatement.
Yeah, it builds it. It can really wear you out.
Well, I'm gonna try something. We're trying something new here on the Barbershop podcast. I want you to play live, but I want to drop a hunk of vinyl. And,
sure, yeah, let's put some vinyl.
I want to play Let's Shake, because you've got a story, and while I'm trying to cue it up, you can go ahead and give me a
that album
rundown.
Was done at Kensington Market in Toronto, and it was a very exciting time because the music was, you know, they were doing the songs live, and we had a lot of fun, you know, at that time. It was really good time, and we were always going to the sessions, and because Frank and my voices blend so well for harmonies. So yeah, we did. And then Rick would come in too, and we just had a lot of fun. And Let's Shake, I remember this like yesterday, that while Frank starts the vocal, he just drops his pants and does the vocal straight face. So the vocal that we know now, you know, and me doubling at the points where we had to. It was just so much fun to do. It was great.
I don't know why anyone would want to do this. All right. I'm going to try to drop it.
Let's give it a shot.
A little something.
Let's give it a shot.
Dave Rave was actually there. This is getting close to that shape.
I think it's there.
Oh, yeah. Drop the needle. Like an old schooler. On barbershoppodcast.com.
Let's shake it, baby.
it out, open up, I'll pass you that beer. I'll move your ass on out of here. Well, I guess you know.
And
That kicks butt too, eh?
yeah, and you were singing on that track.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and you were
yeah.
saying your voice so similar. You double it up with
All of us, you know, we all sang so much. You know, me and Frank started from grade 9 singing together. So really, we all had the same influence. You know, we liked Mick, the Lads, you know, from Liverpool. You know, all of that music. We liked all the '60s music when we were growing up. You know, so we could do the harmonies and that, you know, easy and work with each other. You know.
So you've often been called or referred to as, you know, the fifth member or the fifth member of Teenage Head.
Well,
but you were working in, like, it's more common to see guys working in multiple outfits than at the time, right?
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a trendsetter.
I guess so. You know, I just never wanted to stay in one country. You know, I love music. You know, I never had like boundaries. Like the guy I always say is my mentor when that is Ray Charles, because Ray Charles always played everything. He did country, jazz, blues. He always said it's all good food. Just eat it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember that. You know, like that's just the way I was. Like I never had prejudice towards music. Like I've never cared as long as it's good. It's the only prejudice I have, and so as a result, I've always had an open mind towards it. I guess it's because I remember one time I was a kid. We were kids, me and my cousin Coyote. We were being really, peckerheads, and running around and making fun of some record our parents are playing. And I remember my mother set us aside and went, music's good to, all music's good, like, sort of saying, respect all the music, and we were like, oh, okay. We were that devilish age of 12, 13 when you want to hear, what you really want to hear, nothing else.
That
right?
was badass in the day.
Yeah, But no, so as a result, I always enjoyed it, and I could never get enough. That's it. Never could get enough.
Well, it's been a few episodes since we've had someone in the studio to play live. It was exclusively what we did, and then we've had a few band situations where it just didn't work out. So I'm looking forward to you playing a couple. So maybe you could just pick something that's in your mind that you'd love to play for us right now, or something with a story.
I'll play you something. When I actually joined the band full time was the end of '82. I started doing a lot of shows in '82 with the lads, and went to a TNG, and I was sort of doing both. Like I would go and play with them, and then when the Shakers were sort of done, then I could commit myself totally to that band. And so it was between '83 and '89 that was my real great period where I was totally committed. And in 1988, we did a song that I always liked that we never play anymore, but it was off an album we did called Electric Guitar when I was the actual singer. It was the last album before Frank came back.
Yeah, and many people say that that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a fun album, I really enjoy it, and I always liked this song. Sitting here, I'm having a drink. It's easier than having to think. Her shades are cool, my throat is dry. My dress is pink, and so is my tie. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Sitting here, I'm having a smoke. She starts to laugh, and I start to choke. Her shades are cool, my throat is dry. Her dress is pink, and so is my eye. Oh, yeah. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Now there's a part you can sing along with me, Kevin. La da, la da dee da. La da, la da dee da. You got it. Let's do it again now. La da, la da dee da. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Every time we kiss, she rips my lips. Every time we dance, she cracks my hips. Oh, oh yeah.
Oh, right. Where else?
Electric guitar, she rips my lips.
And who else come in here with a cold and do a Teenage Head song on acoustic guitar and kill it like that? That's a treat. That's a treat. And as I was saying at the beginning, that a lot of people, that album is buried a bit, and when people love it, that's a really good.
It's a fun record.
It's a fun record. Yeah.
It's up there. It's up there from one of the records I'm part of. It's a fun little record. I think it like the records I've always liked the most. I love that I was a part of. I love the Frantic City. It was awesome to be part of that record. I loved, of course, In Time. It was a lot of fun. I loved my Valentino's record, which was the Russian record. I've particularly I love the one I did now in Minnesota and these last two records because they're real spirited records. So these are certain records that you really get a good feeling about when you're doing them. You're going, yeah, The
progression from what was, proto-punk, pop, power chord music into a maturation that a lot of people do, and the influences probably a lot of the music you were laughing at when you were a kid are starting to bleed your style.
I think what happened is it goes no different than I think going back to the beginning. You always is this who you're with. Like I think that the toolboxes. I moved to New York to work there. A new toolbox came up. Up to that point, the toolbox was a beautiful toolbox of the guys. We were a very tight-knit group. We didn't go too far out. And wonderful for that reason. I worked with Rick Andrew, Claude DeRoches, Nick Stepanitz, Frank Venom, Steve Mann, Jack Pedler, the people, right? But that was the main gang. And produced Daniel Lanois and Jack Richards. And Danny's really part of us, like he was a Hamilton boy. Tight thing. We were really weird about going to see Jack Richardson because or Dan then, So it was a tight team. But then when I got to New York, suddenly I'm more really Ficca, from television. And he's my drummer. And Laura Squares, who's my bass player, a guy named Coyote Shivers, a Toronto boy, who's now, or actually Caledonia, really, and Gary Piggold, this musician from Mississauga. Now I got a new paint box to work with.
Really interesting cats. I mean, Coyote, you must give me a good Coyote.
Oh God, what wasn't everything? His whole life is story. An interesting guy because one day I was in Daniel and Danny and I were playing around, and I'd written two, and this guy Coyote comes and to be stowaway on a plane to England, right? So we're like, oh, cool. So then he, later that night, he comes in sheepish. They found me. I can't tell anybody that. Everybody thinks I'm over in Europe right now on a stowaway, but it didn't happen, right? So can I stay here for a couple of days?
That's
what a
wonderful
character. That's how I met him.
Yeah, and a friend being a friend, you don't look at him and go, you're nuts. Instead, It's like, hey, that's great.
Sure. So Danny laughed, and we both laughed. I went, good for you. And I knew Shark Skin, which was an instrumental band with his partner at the time, Cindy Beatty. And then I said to him, the guitar player, the guy who's going to be producing my new record at the time, he's a guy who's a real expert in Beach Boys and surf rock. Come back maybe in a couple of days and meet Gary. And so when Gary was there, and so instead of talking to him, typical Hamilton, being I said, get in there, play guitar. We'll talk about the surf thing later. Came with his crazy style, and it was cool, part of the Valentino's project that I was doing, and then along with Gary, and we loved it because he was odd.
And clearly, it's worked out for him. He's got to be very successful. Inspired a lot of artists in his own right.
Well, yeah, the mistake I made was no, you see, he was Paul Edwards when he came to meet me. He ended up being had the name on his record. And why aren't you calling yourself Coyote Shivers? Why are we calling you Paul? So me and Gary I started calling him Coyote on his record. And he was all sheepish about it. Oh, I don't know. Should I call him? I said, yeah, that's your name. And nobody's going to remember Paul Edwards. That's like a teacher or something like that.
Yeah.
But so we started calling him, we kept calling him. Eventually, he took to it and started really calling himself.
The other person that you mentioned in that group was Laura Agnelli, and you've had a standing, really successful working relation with her. How did you meet her the first time, and what?
Lucky again. She was coming here with the Washington Squares, and band that I'd ever seen play live. They had, they were like the Peter, Paul, Mary, but with a punk attitude. When, working on the D train line, working on the D train. They're played on NY and Mac, and they were just phenomenal. And so we're sitting in New York and doing a show. She was at the show, and I was like awestruck. But she knew this guy that Gary knew, so we talked. She was really very nice, totally unpretentious, and she's come on over, let's just play guitars. I love the Stones, so. And we just got along so well. We were doing all songs off of the and all the stuff we like, punk, Ramones songs, and she was one of us. Getting a bass player, Coyote suggested, let's get her to play bass. Or Gary might have suggested it. He wouldn't play with us. So we went up to her after the show, and we said, would you play bass? He goes, sure. Wow. Yeah. And then they had Billy Ficca in their band, the television drummer, who we loved because he was such a wild man. I said, don't you think he'd want to play with us too? She goes, go ask him. I go. So I went up to Billy, would you like to play with us? He goes, yeah, sure. That easy.
That easy.
And so we recorded, and so we decided we'd start this band called The Conspiracy. Nice way of starting in New York with a really cool band. It was a great lesson for me after being in this insular thing that we had here. To get out, and Billy was one of the. They were the first punk band television. You forget it.
Yeah. He
told me the whole story. How him and Richard Hell and him and the CBs and got the gigs. There was no gigs in New York at the time. It was about 74. So it was just great, to be. He was the total inventor. He was like, it was just continuing working with, like continuing it on, like where Jack was an inventor too on drums. Yeah. Jack Pedler, we're talking about here for people
of the show.
Yes, and exactly, and Teenage Head Drum. Yeah, Billy Fick was right the same block, same old, and we really enjoyed. It's a great way to start your career in New York with these guys.
So when you recorded it, that was very critically acclaimed. Won an award, did it?
You see, what happened is we put the record out on a cassette, and what had happened, because at those days we thought it'd be a nice way to get the sampler going. And what happened? These guys, we were doing the show, came over to the show, and they were saying, "What you're doing? Would you like to put a record out on Melodia?" Now, if you go back, rewind the tape to the year, guy who used to be in the Beatles put out this record called Rock and Roll in Russia, Paul McCartney. And it was a big deal. So I think they were starting to think about getting our Melodia. So when he saw us, he went, well, this is an artist that might be good for Melodia. And we looked at each other going, no. Following up Paul McCartney. It's crazy. So, Gary, of course, and Coyote, this is fantastic. They were jumping up and down when I told them. Or when we found out, they were like, "Let's go for it." So we went over there, and the album came out on vinyl in Russia.
Wow,
an amazing experience to go through it. To go over there, and they still were just they just gotten. It was pretty exciting.
It was a really, really tumultuous. Things were changing,
And we made this video there that still behind it called Weight of the World. We did Weight of the World. And it was just a really exciting thing to do. It was a great. Again, if there's moments in your life, do you create it or does it come to you? You can't knock the wall down. I mean, that was going to happen. We just happened to be there when it happened.
Yeah.
You know. And Coyote was an astonishing guitar player. Where they were technically brilliant, he was more untechnically brilliant. He didn't know, the notes the way those guys did. That was just far out. Mm-hmm. So I was lucky. I got another guy who was unique and free thinker the way those guys were.
Right. Okay, we're gonna play Tongue, and this is off of Confetti. The story so far.
Yeah. The original album was called the 3-octave hexagram on the old Gritty City records here.
Right.
And then but we made a reissue called the Confetti. For Lord, we included all our different stuff on it, and I've always loved this. It was the real conspiracy in full action.
It's beautiful. So you listen at the Barbershop Podcast. Here we are at barbershoppodcast.com. Mr. Silver Tongue. This is Lauren, Dave Rave. conspiracy there.
Yeah.
Is that some of the good stuff?
Well, you know, when the scene wasn't like it was the end of the Pixies, Husker Du, Thurston Moore's band. That was the scene that was going on at the time, and we used a bit of that into our music too. We were learning from. I was learning from those guys. You know, we were, and bringing. Coyote was at that point. We were like early 30s, so he was saying, "Check this band out. They're called Nirvana." So we'd go down. At the Pyramid, and I think they're the best Seattle band. They just had, and then we were listening to Sonic Youth, the album got signed to Geffen. They that last record, we were going to see them, and we were energy that was going on in New York at the time, which was like the end of an era before Nirvana actually broke and the grunge started. So, and it was exciting to be there as it was going, and we were. Guard stuff going on, like Maggie Estep, King Missile, taking it all in and throwing it in, and that's what allowed me to do that song. And I did, the Bob Mould's new band and Jay Mascis with the Dinosaur. I was just letting it all come in. I was opening my doors to music because we were 70s camp into. And the replacements and stuff like that, but it's always good to keep your doors open.
Town,
yeah.
And this is what it's important. You go to the big city. I think you'd be silly to go in with any other surrounded with such talent.
Very fortunate, Kevin. When I couldn't take my collection with me because I had a little room in my apartment, so I had to leave it in Hamilton, and so I met named Chris McGuire, and he was a guy who just loved music. He was a record company guy, and he said to me, he gave me the keys. You probably must be hurting for music, so just come over to my house. Working during the day, you get to my house, tape anything you want. So wow, and he had an amazing collection from Graham Parsons to, avant jazz to current punk to old punk. Like he loved it all. He was like same with us, eclectic, and I got to check stuff that I always never could hear, I couldn't afford, or didn't come to Hamilton, and it just opened my ears to a lot of that way. And then New York, like everything once, Nirvana and that broke, became codified, and when the conspiracy ended, Coyote went to a solo career. Lauren and I continued going. Gary started doing the country rock, the alt rock, and then so me and Lauren sort of similar to what happened to me and Rick after Teenage Head. Like we became a duo, and there was this anti-folk scene happening in New York, which was great because there was a guy named Latch who was at the of it, and he was trying all through the early 90s, but it finally hit 94. Okay, now we can let the band go, because what's going on in the grunge is now it's losing my inspiration. We need something fresh. So into that New York, like all the folky, like the anti-folk, and it was a real great eclectic group of people. Really heavy power pop on one side, and playing like where you'd hear these guys doing Nirvana, and you'd have like comedians and all this stuff all in one little, picking it up on it, and we got part of that scene, and it became very exciting for me and Lauren because we Confetti record, we did some stuff because we finally home in New York. It was on Avenue A. It was the Sidewalk Cafe. I found my own CBs, and when I really knew we'd made it is I remember we were these Italian people came over. We were renting the room out when we were, and when they found out who we were, they did a whole story on us in Italy, where you got, like, it was on this street.
Nice.
Agnelli and Rave are the head of the scene, and on Avenue, part of the anti-folk scene. And I went, wow, our little thing. We did that to year 2000. and to 2000. And then 9/11 happened, and like the rest of the world, the world turned sour, and New York changed, and it's recovered since, and it's a new New York, but it changed everything. That whole scene that we were a part of, the sidewalk scene, changed overnight. But so I was lucky because the guitar player playing with who was becoming part of our scene. I'll give you an example, Kevin. Face Starlight. She's this crazy songwriter that was theater actor, part of that whole, and she would do these songs. We started going on the road with her, and she would do these rock songs in a country style.
Yes, yes.
And she was awesome, like a genius. Nashville with her. We started going all over the States with her, and she was great. And we were writing with her, but her guitar player was named Mark McCarran. Fantastic guitar player, and we all became friends. He started playing with our show along. And one day in 2001, just before 9/11 happened, Mark said, "Have you ever thought about writing together?" And I went, "Okay, you're a great guitar player. I'd love to do this." And I said, "Well, why don't you do your natural thing that you do?" And thing was jazz. And I said, "Okay, well, I'll bring my natural thing, which is pop and punk rock, pop punk rock, stuff, new wave punk pop rock, and let's see what happens if this marriage can happen." We wrote some tunes. It seemed to work, and so I remember playing it. Glenn Marshall, our fine guy,
Yes.
and Glenn listened to it. It wasn't. He said, "Yes, gentlemen, I'd love to record this." So he came to me, a fellow named Jason Frederick, who was a guy from The Walk. I don't even remember them. Sudbury, and he was a great keyboard player. We had him recording with Glenn at the helm, and we forged a new path in our music, like after me and Lauren doing. And it was exciting, so it wasn't like contrived. Like I just said, you bring your story, because I don't know how to play jazz, but I know how to write songs. So if you don't mind us, being natural. So I let him play guitar for I said, "You play, that way I won't be inhibited by the chords.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you be in charge of the tunes." And then we each helped each other. Like he would help me on some tunes when I'd get stuck. Some chords are going, like, how about that, And it was this relationship over the last 10 years, and he's played on my regular record. Now here's another little funny story of connecting Kevin. At Mohawk College, and he taught Brian Griffith, Dave King, our fellow musicians here in town, Mark Foley, who I play with now.
Yeah, all wonderful players.
He taught all these, and he's a gentleman and a great teacher. He taught me indirectly by writing songs together. So I'm very grateful to him for him to opening up and showing me how to make music. And I'm sure in some way he's probably glad that we could have fun working with me, or we would, what I mean? And so last year, Roman Clune, another fellow Hamiltonian, who's been in 10 years, he moved into the city, and his wife, and it's called Innsbruck Records. And when Ralph, a bongo beat, sort of doesn't have the budget no more to do records anymore, fell through, he suggested to me to come to his label. And I was thrilled. Now again, a new group of people that we're into now. He's put out this new record called Memphis.
And in New York, it has, I guess, a distinct New York feel to it.
Yeah, well,
it's inspired because this is, you've let go of the guitar end of it, and you're writing.
It's funny, I know. Well, it's a really interesting thing that even though Glenn didn't produce this song, because he produced the first two records, now Roman's doing it. This song comes from a trip when we were on the road, and me and Glenn together in Memphis. And the whole album is just vignettes on the road. And it's exciting to do because one remembering is about the very first time I came to New York. The first time me and Glenn were in Memphis together. We got one song about the first. Another song about just getting on the highway, and when you tour. It's called On Your Getaway, and it's like, I think it's about when me and Glenn first put that trip across America. Oh yeah, you're gung ho, right? You're so excited to go. Yeah, let's go. And so it's On Your Getaway. The way the record worked, and one of the songs is a reflection. A Fortunate Boy, which is just basically every once in a while you just remember we're very fortunate that we love music the way we do, right, Kevin? That this is what we love, and good with the bad, but
it's gonna pay.
We're wonderful. That beautiful thing. Those moments when you just go, yeah.
All right, a little bit. Lonesome Boy off of Memphis Midnight.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah, this one is actually called on the Memphis Midnight Ride, which the title track is. And it's called The Memphis Midnight Ride, and it's a story about our very first.
Here we go. You hear to hear on barbershoppodcast.com.
Woohoo! Wow, man, that was cooking.
That was cooking. And everyone got a piece. The dog was barking. And we're talking about, I mean, the body of work you bring in here is great. I mean, sometimes people come in and then it's like, okay, we'll make something. But you came in and you've got such a body of work, and that was sounding really good.
Thank you. The thing in this stuff is you grow and you learn to, like, when I met Rick Andrews too, or Frank, I grew from both those guys. Frank was like the most natural, great. Rick was one of the best singers to this day I've ever sung with, and Rick knew how to finger pick. When I first started, I couldn't do either of them, and because of those guys, I always look at it that way. The guys around you make you better, and all you have to do is just apply yourself to who's around. When Timmy joined our band with the Shakers, we suddenly had an ace, and we never had an ace guitar player because he was a gunslinger. Rick was a guitar, wasn't a gunslinger. He was a composer, and he knew it. But he did a wonderful job. His guitar solos, but we knew we needed somebody like him. He walked in the door. Suddenly, the Shakers. When Jack Pedler had, he boosted our level up. We could do songs we couldn't do before. Every time you work with these people, he taught me how to be fearless, because television and those punk guys were fearless. Melody and harmonies, because he would play a complex chord to me, and I'll go, well, what do I do now, Mark? I've never. And he goes, okay, if I'm playing something complex, you sing something simple. You know what I mean? Like, he taught me with the balance of music, which I didn't know what to do. Do I go diddly da ba boom boom boom, or my daddy goes, no, that's nothing to do with that. No, you go that. And it was each step gets you inspiration. You can't help but grow if you around you. That's the absolute truth. I wish
and it shows, because as in this body of sound that we've heard, and there's a New York sound, and you've traveled internationally, and you've just come back from the Midwest, where it's a hotbed in its own right of a certain sound and a certain breed of musicians.
Well, what happened? It was really interesting. We were doing this show, a rock and roll show, though, with this bass player friend of his that he plays with, who wanted to know we could be. And it was at the old knitting factory downtown, New York, right down in by the Trade Center. What happened is everyone was in the audience. I did the drummer do a drum solo. It was like, and I remember the drummer in the band after us comes up to me, man, you gave the drummer a drum solo? I want to play with you. He goes, and they were from Minnesota, the band, and he goes, would you ever? I'll be your drummer. And I went, well, I've never really done much in Minnesota. Oh, okay. He goes, trust me. And so that night we all went and hung out. We realized, guys, we were, just goofing off, drinking, and doing everything they had to do after. You don't do too often in New York. The fellow's name was Tom Cook, and he was just a big. Who I loved him right away. He was exactly the same taste of music I had. Everything from like an ELO and Oasis to and punk rock and and Simon and Garfunkel. There was no limits. Reggae, rap. He's the same with all of us, So I said, if he calls me back, I'll go, and he did. That they don't do it.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, he booked me for a punk rock thing at 7th Avenue, which is right next to Purple Rain, and for a part of the whole Minnesota punk rock scene. Slowly, over the last 5 years, now in Minnesota, and we just and getting to meet these really great guys who are just like us. Real gritty, honest, beautiful guys, and I love them. We became brothers in arms, and we grew together. We grew up together. A whole new thing. And Tom, during the day, he was delivering flowers, and I'd be driving all over Minneapolis. Oh, this guy used to play with this is Grant. This guy used to work with the Replacements, and this guy he was this legend in the like a Tim Gibbons kind of. But never really, broke out of Minneapolis. But still, we love him. He's one of our heroes. real guys and get to play the bill with the real guys. And realize Minneapolis has got, and Minnesota's an amazing state for music because you got replacements, Prince, Bob Dylan. You got what do you call it from Runaway Train Run? What's his name? Remember them? The whole twin tone scene.
Yeah.
Soul Asylum.
Yeah.
And then you got guys at 3 o'clock train. Remember them? And what was it? The guy Beer. And you just start meeting all these guys, and to get into that group of people is a real honor. And they want you to be, and they think you're one of them. And
investment, like you're bunked down. And did you go in there with the idea, I'm going to create? Perhaps there's going to be a recording, or did you go in and say, I'm going to make a recording?
We just went there to have fun. They learned new, and I learned a bunch of stuff, and we was no intent in recording or writing or anything like that. We just, and then suddenly Craig, who's really produced the new record we did together, who's a legendary fellow from Minnesota, great musician and great player, we got to go up to Craig's place and let's have some fun. And so he been writing on, and the song was called She Likes Rock and Roll, and this idea to sort of lick, and I went, that's a great lick, let's this. And so we just started writing it, and then we got the guys together, we went up there and recorded, but it wasn't like, it was after we've been getting together for a few years of coming up and just playing and going through different players, and them having belief in me and me having belief in them, and just as brothers in music. I love it because I don't always go in January when it's really cold.
To show.
Then I go to usually in June. We go in June. And so suddenly we just kept going in there. We'd write a bunch of songs, and like this record's a really chip-in record. Like I would come a lick, somebody else would come along. Everybody was chipping in, and we were all laughing the whole time. It was of like the old days here in Hamilton.
Excellent.
I loved it. So
I want you to play one. Pick one to play live, and then we'll play one off the CD.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. We'll figure one off. I think
Dave Rave and the Governors.
Okay, yeah. So
will be available on our website. You'll be able to all Dave's links and.
What I'll do is I'll play right now. We'll save the record for I'll play that I always like playing, and. I'll play this song that sort of ties it all together. It ties Teenage Head, Conspiracy, Governors, continue doing it, and it sort of ties because it's got a bit of, to me, it's New York, all of it, and it's because it's also got Patti Smith in it, and it's got the New York thing. It's called When Patti Rocked. I like doing this one.
And Patti Rocked, a musical quilt from Dave Rave here on Barbershop Podcast.
Everybody wants to go downtown. I can't take it, I can't hang around. Beside me wants to talk all night. Go out and we begin the fight. But I remember every minute of the day I could call you up. Something you would say. Now I hear your voice on the pod. When Patti rocked the gamble. One special is inside this room now. It's gotta go and leave these ruins. Sounds us in the spring. Now she's beside me, she don't a thing. Yet I remember every night, every minute I could call you up. There was something you would say. I hear your voice on the radio. When March, the gamblers start to roll. Whoa, whoa. All these people in the rain, they wanna tell me that I've the girl beside me thinks she says I'm part of someone's dying. I remember every minute of the day I could talk to you. Your velvet ways. Now I hear your voice on the radio. When Pat and Raj, the gamblers, I remember every night, every minute of the day. Call you up, there was something you would say. Now I hear on the radio. When Pat and Raj, the gamblers start to roll. When Pat and Raj, when Pat and Raj, when Pat and Raj, Pat and Raj, you know. Yeah, you got it. All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. And on my part, Dave's coming here with sick with a frog in his throat.
I'm thinking like Paul Westerbeck right now.
I'm gonna kick in with what my little bit.
I love it.
That little old lady could be the person who pushes you out of the ditch. She's the last one, right? You know,
Yeah.
I don't have to be. Who's hip these?
Yeah. Sure, you're asking the wrong guy.
We should play the record where it all began. She likes rock and roll.
She likes rock.
All about, really, isn't it?
And it's. I like the way you write. But understandable little chunks, and each one's a snapshot, and each one has an. And by the time the song's done, you don't take someone too far off the beaten track. But they're reminders, and the hook's so important, and you always go to the hook where there's there's obviously a biorhythm, or there's something to a song that makes it. You want to write something that sticks in someone's head.
Well,
right?
yeah. See, I think the key thing is it for me. It's we're sharing this time, you know. We're just like, when you think about it, when you play Let's Shake, you're taking 1980 and you're moving it forward. When you play Out the Door, when you play these, our little village going further, you know. And when we're listening to other people's music, so you want to transmit that. You want to let that moment, like you know, like a great beatnik poem, or you read you're now suddenly in that place, and it's being taken. You're on that trip with Jack country. I always love that. Or you're, or like his Keith, listen to Elvis Sun Sessions, right? You're getting that. You're back in that amp at night. And you're Memphis in that room, you know, and he's doing you're back there, you know. But he's taking it forward. He can still be part of that society that Elvis was thinking about. Yeah, back. When I hear your song, the one you just did on that starts to show off,
King of rock and roll.
yeah, you know, it's keeping.
Yeah.
It's the train that we're on, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to play. Wraps it all up. This song is about what it's all about, and she likes to rock.
He likes rock and roll, baby.
She likes rock and roll, and don't they all?
Ah.
At barbershoppodcast.com. No,
No, we're not. It's not reading.
It's not reading?
That's why I'm.
Oh, it's
shaking
not.
my-
reading. Oh, why
it's,
not?
it's,
I wonder.
it's an issue with the
Is it? You don't want to try another one? Well, okay, hang on, wait a second.
$1,000 player, Dave. Where did you get this done?
Oh,
Is this
man.
from China? Is this one of these imports off a container?
Craig did it. I don't. You think he would have? Craig, where are you? Hang on.
It is a
And
little
then the other.
all the other ones. Yeah, it's just the CD, the ashtray.
Is any of this tracks reading on it?
No, it's not even loading the CD.
Okay, hang on. Let me just see if I can get another one
Yeah.
here. Hold on for a second.
Is it the master?
I'm not too sure. No, it's. Okay. In the meantime.
In the meantime,
In the meantime,
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'll try.
yeah, I'm going to entertain everyone.
I got another copy of
I could do a
All
man.
right. Mandolin solo.
Yeah, I was going to pull it out. I mean the mandolin. And we're not that desperate for ratings yet.
No.
You know, and I need. We should do our phoner one of these days.
You got this one here.
Yes, and
On it.
that one's reading.
Okay.
Maybe that one could be.
And the thing that's why people, you know, record player on, and it's like I'm trying to find the groove in the semi-darkness of the CD, and then
that one reading?
remember that was indestructible. DVDs or your newfangled
There we go.
video
Is that
record. See,
that might be just
the
that one.
magic. Yeah.
Okay, now we
11,
got it.
right?
So
We're
got
on. We're on 11, baby.
He was
See,
trying
we
to-
saved it.
Yeah, we got the good one. She likes rock and roll. Barbershoppodcast.com.
I don't know what she does in the daytime. She's always out at night. She'll make a moment last a lifetime. Things living easy, hope she's right. She likes rock and roll. She likes rock and roll. You couldn't miss her. She was on the scene, playing with boys, if you know what I mean. We were at the end of the show. She said with a coolest, that's she likes rock and roll. She likes rock and roll. She likes rock and roll. Tell me a song. Can you look one look? Can you take a look? There you go. She can play the part in a limousine, spending all the money on lean cuisine. She likes rock and roll. She likes rock and roll. She likes rock and roll. Likes rock and she likes rock and likes rock and
fucking right. That's rock and roll.
And full cycle from out the door,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like, isn't it funny?
Yeah, and you see that kind of wave, the '80s, and how things changed, and truly, you know, when I saw Bob Mould pop the limiters, you know, it's like that guy's still fucking
Absolutely.
rock. Nice to know, you know, when you do go to a well-attended live show and you see the power of live music, it's awesome.
Well, you know, rock and roll, I've always said this, you know, like, it's always been about the love of. She likes rock and roll. Like, we're writing for the girls. Like, each verse, it's like all the songs we write, each verse is like, one's about this one girl we know, and she has a she comes to the shows, and on her license plate was "Living is Easy," and so the first easy. I hope so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she's a cool gal. And you know, and she makes this moment last for a lifetime. You know, which is rule. The other verse, the second verse is about when the beautiful after the show, and you're like, you still can't believe it after all these years. Wow, us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and she thinks we're. So she's got to be cool too, right?
Yeah.
That's why she likes rock, and you know, and that's what it's about. Action of people together, you know, all sharing, you know, the moment. You know, when I'm here, we're sharing the moments together in your place, in your house here. It brought us here, and we've, you know, drank too much, listened to, and have, you know, maybe fallen down, but that's part of it. That interaction, you know, I mean, but there's room for all of it. I love the guys like this and make their music, and, you know, there's room for all of it.
Yeah.
But rock and roll is more about
and interactive, like you were saying. And I feel, I catch myself sometimes saying that I'm not 27 anymore. I can't necessarily, you know, into that scene. But when you go out, like you have in this last week, just coming back and energy and seeing the productivity and how good the product is and how much fun people are having and how live they are when they're on.
That's it. And, you know, another thing too, which I've always was really like in a big C, but a little C, was that, you know, when Billy Ficca and Lauren came to 90s after I left T&H and I went away and I come back home, we stayed on the street. Like I'm like Bill Majoris from, you know, who used to play with All Together Morrison foreign films. Bill said it was really important to meet Bill, a guy from New York, television, famous band, and for them to talk about drums. Like, we didn't try to. That's important, and Bill loved being in Hamilton for that reason. You know, Bill was a Hamilton, not a New Yorker, in hiding in his fame. But Tim, he loved jamming. He was part of us, you know, and I thought that was really important. That we're connected. We're not. It's not some magical place. It's still just a 10-hour drive. And Lauren was the same way. She was part of the scene here. She didn't for New Yorkness and not stuff. No, she was hanging out with everybody, you know, and part of the scene. Not. And that was really important for me to give inspiration. Yes, there is a world out there outside of Hamilton, but we can come home and still be Hamilton. And like, it's not a negative, it's a positive.
And the core of people, like the feeling when you in Minneapolis, that those people could be, if they didn't speak and you didn't detect an accent, it's the same guy.
Absolutely.
And also, Europe, you know,
absolutely,
because you've gone to Europe, and, you know, what was when you physically, were you intimidated, or you were just embracing it?
I think you always intimidated, no matter what. There's a bit of insecurity. You know, your confidence is, but then once you're there and you're playing, and you see everybody around. It's like a hockey team when they're going to be playing. The first time they play, you know, you're playing a really good team. You go, are we any good as these guys? I think the same thing. And then you realize, oh yeah, we're good. We're okay. We can skate with them. It's like the same thing. England, you know, it was very exciting. And the first time we went to Liverpool, it was like overwhelming. Because these are meccas. It's like New York, you know, and we were very fortunate that to us, and so did, England's talking to us, and we're going back again in May. Myself, and last year I did take a nice Canadian band. This year it's going to be part New York, part Hamilton band, but we went and we realized it was really funny because I remember we fly over me 1 year because we were doing the Hamilton Liverpool. They had this cheap flight, so there's Dave King, myself, Ricky Andrew, Mark. We get into Liverpool, and we just felt like we were in the same city. Same, like, they're like, where are you coming from? Hamilton, get in, like, stamp it. Then we get back home. Yeah, nothing's changed. You realize how got the same backgrounds between the two cities, like Irish, English, Scottish.
Yeah.
Boom. 90% that.
Yeah, especially people our age. That's the demographic into it, and then the musical, like you said, the American and the British influence.
Yeah.
All kind of bringing us to where we are now, right?
Well, and the very interesting story again about being intimidated. I'll tell you really another funny little story. With Mark, and we were playing with two Italian guys, right? Matteo, great drummer, and we were all sitting there playing in Ali. He was our bass player, and we rehearsed, and it's good. We're excited. Then that first moment, I remember we went to the festival, and or whatever. We get there, and there's a bar, and we see all these people sitting in the patio. Our gear up, and okay, cool. Well, I guess who knows me here? We'll just have a lot of fun. We'll play to the
crowd.
And little we know they were waiting for us in the bar.
The buzz.
We were all sitting in the patio waiting for us to set up. Then they came in. The place was totally. Yeah, and I remember me and Mark looked at each other going. Did they make a mistake? And instead they knew our music, and they were. All I remember is that they're all pogoing and in doing the stuff. Jumps off, and he knows us, and he's body surfing him, and me and Mark, like, because we're the Hamilton boys, like the Italian guys don't. But we're like, is this us? Really? They like us. Music. Wow. It's always gratifying because you don't know.
No. And it's the universal language.
Absolutely.
Make that connection instantaneous.
The whole tour was amazing of Italy. We did it a couple times. We did it times. I can't remember how many times we did there, but it was amazing. And the fact that, you're walking down, again, it's your little mind. You just go, wow. With your name on the sidewalk. This is Rome. There's the Colosseum, and your name's on. Like for us, you never ever lose that thrill of it. Yeah. I don't care how many times you do this. It's a thrill. We had so much fun. It was amazing. And they, again, like the guys in Minnesota, they treat us like brothers. And we never felt like we were ever like outsiders. They were like introducing us to everybody in the whole scene. And they were.
Well, I think you do a lot of that for yourself. Well, I really do think that you are a very, accepting person. And when you talk about community, first step quite often, like when Frank walked up to you and said, hey, do you want to be in a band? Somebody has to be that person. And when you asked Laura, do you want to be my band? Of course.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, what's she going to want to do that? But
that's true. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, because a lot of times, you're when you go somewhere else, you just want to respect them and their customs. You want them to come here, and if you said, hey, this is Chris Houston, and you want them to respect him, that's vice versa. You just want to do the same thing there.
Yeah.
If they introduce you to somebody from the way you would expect them to be here, it's just...
Well, on that note, you showed the respect that I require by bringing me. You brought me a cut that is fresh, something that has not been heard anywhere.
Yes.
I know. So I demanded this head on a platter, and you brought it to me. Show you how grateful I am. But you need to it by saying this is again. You're constantly working. This is what.
Yes, it's
What is
featuring my wonderful guitar player here in Mr. Mark Foley.
Mark Foley,
at his
excellent.
best. Yes, at his best. He plays wonderful. Jim Casson and Bill Culp, my drummer and bass player, and it's for in Connecticut. There's a great city called New London, another scene full of music. Always been, and they called Good Sponge. They did a compilation out last year. It went really well. This is vol, and they asked us again to contribute a song if we would like, and I said. Ben, the fellow from my label, that runs the label, is again like himself, like you, Kevin. He embraces it all. Like he puts together great compilations, and he invites me into the Connecticut community. I wrote now lives in Connecticut, so it's nice. Connecticut person too. So I'm now an official Connecticut person through her.
And
right?
you've spread farther and. Much like the manure in the springtime, it's feeding and growing.
Well, New London's a great, excellent compilations because that area is another fertile area of music, and they help each other too. So it's good.
The working title of this one is.
The working title is the actual title is called Solutions. It's coming out actually pretty soon. I think they're doing Friday or is it tomorrow Friday? Thursday. Yeah, just Wednesday now. This is done. It doesn't matter, does it?
It really doesn't.
No. Put this way, it'll be out by the time this is out. But the Good Sponge Sampler Volume 2, Solutions.
Solutions on barbershoppodcast.com.
Everyone's seeking solution. Ain't no easy solution. Everyone's inside one answer. Everybody shares problems. Everybody thought I could solve them. Even all the crazy and tough ones.
That's trippy. And it's been quite a trip, hasn't it?
Oh. You know what's really nice about this for me, Kevin, is that we're, here right now trying to get, make another dollar, pay, okay, I got to pay rent this month. And then suddenly we sit and talk, and then it all becomes worthwhile. Like,
and, yeah, you had a little perspective of.
Yeah, and, because, yeah, it's okay. We're fortunate, again, that we can do this. That we have mics, and you put together technology now that we can be. We don't need Q107. No.
Yeah, and it just requires that mind of people working together who have that passion in music. And I think money only carries so much clout because the passion is for. And when that runs out, you're looking for other things, and you're spending money for what? Music is always going to have. The soul of music may be corrupted at times, but it's never going away.
No, like I remember this a long time ago when we were kids. I remember we were at this place, and it was a big band days, and I remember this guy, he was in a wheelchair, and we're like, how's he going to play his instrument? And I remember as soon as he got on stage and he got his instruments,
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was suddenly, he was whatever, he was 80 years old. He suddenly became old again. And I always remember that image, like, wow, what a transformation. Working there. I saw one of the old great guys from Five-ish Finkel, the old, the Jewish, the from, and my friend works at the theater in New York. He said, Five-ish Finkel's playing. Get me a ticket. I love seeing those vaudeville guys. And he was, yet I had no idea that after he was finished, and he even danced, what he called Rob, Rob Bronstein, the fellow who put, he was, back in his wheelchair. I mean, really? There's no way. He goes, yeah. We but when he was on stage, and he was wonderful. And the joy of talking about the 20s to now in heaven to see that guy, because he took me back to Al Jolson, to the 40s. He took me back. We were talking about today. But he was bringing it forward.
Yeah, showmanship. And did he think this was anything other than
absolutely
the real deal?
First, actor's got to eat. The actor's got to eat. Oh, and they were like, laugh. I'm like, this is brilliant. He's so right. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, all I'm saying, he was a genius and brilliant, and I'm so glad that I saw it,
Well, you know what? I'm so glad I saw you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came. I just want to grab you a while ago.
Thank you.
A fantastic show. Had a great. Learned a thing or three.
And everybody out there.
This is also the record, too. This is our long. And in just under 2 hours.
Yay!
Yay! For everyone. All right,
see
Dave.
you out there in the world.
All of Dave's fans all around the world.
Woohoo!
And remember to Shop Podcast.
Should we announce what we're doing next week?
Yeah.
Broadcast.
Yeah, we're going to we're upgrading our technical aspect, getting fiber optic cable, live YouTube feed,
and it's actually going to happen this time.
Yeah,
right. And who are you doing it with?
Phase.
We're gonna do it
ourselves.
Should we say?
I think
we're gonna do it the drunk cast.
Yeah, me and Ryan are going to polish off a bottle of scotch and talk about a few things. And
we might
never know. Who knows?
I'm loving it.
But it'll be live and
yeah. Pretty. Thanks for helping us out, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Joining us at the Barbershop as your host, barbershoppodcast.com. Catch it every week. Out.